Welcome, everyone. My name is Kristen Coomer. I'm the president of the Seattle Metals Guild, and I work to help offer this lecture series. This is the 2025 Seattle Metals Guild Emerging Artists Lecture Series. Welcome, and thank you for being here. You may know us as hosts of the Northwest Jewelry and Metals Symposium, which is now in its 30th year. This keystone event is known across the industry for its consistently compelling roster of artists who join us each fall to speak about their innovative work. In contrast to our autumn event, this series we begin tonight is intended to create a space for emerging artists' voices in the spring. Our guild also provides grants funding, where we alternately, on a yearly basis, between established and emerging artists to award merit-based funds to a member within our organization. So whether you yourself are established or emerging in your arts practice, we're proud to offer a broad set of opportunities to contribute and connect at all levels of practice. Another new opportunity we're excited to introduce this summer is a pilot mentorship program. We invite all members to consider what you know as a mentor or would like to learn as a mentee and apply today. Applications are open through the end of this month, and we're offering a live Q&A session next Wednesday evening about the program. So check that out on our website and register for details. Please also be sure to mark your calendars for the remaining events in this Emerging Artists series. You can register online or use your existing Zoom link to join us again next time. We'll see you at 6 p.m. Pacific on third Tuesdays of each month through June of 2025. And with that, I'd like to introduce our student board member, Amy Shea, who will lead us through tonight's event. Amy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Shea, and I am very excited to introduce our speakers today. We have three wonderful artists who are joining us. We have Carin Jones, and then we have Grant Turner and Wyatt Nestor-Pasicznyk. So first of all, we're going to start closest to home. So Carin is a member of Seattle Metals Guild. She's a Seattle-based artist. She derives her inspiration from a zoological background through years of collecting and cataloging specimens. I also am very interested in taxidermy, so I'm excited about this talk. She's currently making abstract sculptural jewelry out of vintage tin and sterling silver, exploring concepts of waste and what is valued within society. Interestingly enough, today is also Global Recycling Day, so how apt is this talk? So with that, Carin, I will let you get on with the show.
Okay, perfect. So I don't know if I drew this short straw in this having to go first, but we'll get started anyways. I am Carin Jones. I am a contemporary art jeweler, I would say, and I work out of my home studio in Kingston, Washington. For those of you, I know a lot of you are on here that aren't local. I am just a quick ferry ride over from Seattle onto the Olympic Peninsula. You can find me online under my business name, Jonesing for Jewelry, which I know is a little silly. It's kind of a holdover from when I wasn't taking my art seriously. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about in today's presentation. And lastly, I sell organic castings to other artists on my website at j4jcastings.com. Okay, so a little about my background. I've always really been interested in art and science. As they talked about earlier, I actually have a zoology degree. And I raised endangered red wolves for years as part of the species survival program. But I've always made jewelry. I can remember as far back as middle school, I was making little shrinky-dink earrings out of plastic and beads and selling them at my local farmer's market. But because of that, I don't have really any traditional training, and I would definitely consider myself quote unquote self-taught. And so I think my story today is going to be a little bit different than most, just because of the path that I took to get here. And in many ways, I sort of represent this new generation of artists that were born out of the Etsy hobbyist kind of, YouTube education like era. And I really do understand that sort of my existence in this art world can be a little polarizing in some ways. But I also believe that we are going to start seeing more and more artists like me as we go forward. Online tutorials are becoming way more prevalent. And unfortunately, we're starting to see a lot more traditional art schools sort of shutter their doors. Did I push it too many times? Oh no, I did good. Okay. So a little bit about my old work. Because I don't have any formal training, I was really selling on Etsy and Instagram and, eventually my own website while I was honing my skills and while I was really sort of exploring and experimenting what I wanted to make. I started beading, in middle school with those shrinky dink earrings. I eventually learned how to ball up fine silver wire with a blowtorch. And I eventually learned to saw and solder, and I taught myself to cast. And organic casting just really fit this mold for me. It was just this nice, clean story, kind of from a marketing standpoint, when you talk about it with my zoological background. And it really sent me down this sort of obvious path that I took for a long time. And you're going to see in a minute, but I think my old work really reads like little found specimens in natural history displays. And I'll show you that now. So on the left, this is a organic cast honeybee, and it has 18 karat gold details. It's a hand-blown Pyrex glass that was made by a local artisan here in town. The middle one is an organic cast wilted leaf and with kombu on the inside of that, and sort of this signature frame that you will see me carry into my new work. And the last piece here is from my specimen series, which is a piece of fluorite with this sort of signature typographic label that I kind of became known for after a while. And this work definitely started to gain momentum. I was having shop updates that were selling out. I started carrying in some really well-known galleries, and I really started to gain a strong social media following. And eventually I was able to quit the zoo and sort of work on jewelry full-time. Sorry. And I just want to reiterate here, the story tonight isn't about what I was making, but more how I felt about it. I obviously am very proud of this work, and I really do love it, but it never quite fit. It sort of felt like trying on your friend's pair of jeans, right? They can look good, but they don't really quite fit your butt right. So I was kind of always looking to explore and reach a little bit farther. So as I'm making this organic cast work, you'll watch me just sort of jump around quite a bit. And I would get an idea, and then I would sort of have to teach myself or learn how to do whatever technique it was in order to execute that idea. So here on the left, I started using some natural bones. Those are rabbit skulls in those earrings. And the middle pair I was doing some more playful stuff. And lastly, I added some vintage tobacco tags that had always caught my eye. But it was in January of last year, I was at the Tucson Gem Show, which is a place that is just really inspirational for me. My friends and I we shop for gems during the day and then spend the evening sort of really delving into what we're making, why we're making it, and come up with kind of a plan for what we were going to make for the next year. And it was there that I really had this kind of undeniable urge to shift what I was making. And it really all stemmed from this idea that I wanted to add neon to the work. And so I spent the next several months really chasing this idea of neon. And again, I didn't know how I was going to execute it, but I just tried a bunch of different techniques in order to get there. So I first tried enameling, and then I tried powder coating, which is the first photo you see here. And at that time, I really thought maybe the organics still played a role in it. And when that didn't work, I went back to sort of beads like I was in middle school. And every time I tried a different technique, I just really kept saying, it's not neon enough. And eventually I added neon acrylic. And during this time of exploration, I was also really studying a lot of abstract paintings and collage. And that really helped me define what the new work was going to look like. And it was in the spring of last year when a little piece of neon acrylic landed next to some of those vintage tobacco tags that I had previously been exploring. And something just clicked for me. It was like no other experience I've ever had. It was really physical for me. I was almost hyperventilating in the studio. I sort of dropped to the ground with this huge sigh of relief. It was like this weight had been lifted off of me, that I had solved this puzzle that I had been working on for years. So this is some of the new work. I do think they read like little color field style abstract paintings. And I think the typography within each of the tins is sort of this texture, slight color change within that color block. I'm currently chasing these shapes that I'm calling soft facets, which are as if you were trying to cut a circle out of paper with sort of rusty old shears and you can't get it quite right. So they are wonky, they're irregular, but they're also very recognizable shapes. And the beads also are sort of color fields, but with a completely different texture change. And lastly, the acrylic little winks of neon just really bring the work to life by juxtaposing, you know, that old vintage tin with this really modern, clean, bright acrylic. And so in the next slide, I'm going to start a video that shows you the process. The video starts really quickly, so I just wanted to give you a warning about it. Maybe. Okay, so if you compare my old work and my new work, I think both of them are very industrial. I've carried the bolts over in almost everything I've made. And along with those sorts of frames that I talked about before. But my work has always been about perceived value, sort of why we decide as a group, as society, that, setting faceted gemstones inside precious metal is the only thing worth anything. Before I was using sort of dead bits of found nature to challenge this idea, and now I've just replaced that with the tin. And honestly, the tin is so uniquely worn, both by time and humans, that they in themselves are actually little specimens. But if you contrast the work, I think that my old work was very technique based. If you knew the technique, you could make very similar work easily. But I really do believe that my new work only exists because I followed the muse when she called. And kind of on that similar vein, I think that if you saw a piece of my older work, you could easily misattribute it to a handful of artists, both past and present. And I know that there are a lot of other artists that are using found objects and vintage tin in their work. But I still think that the new work reads very unique. And I don't think I've ever seen anything like it on the market. My old work is obviously a lot more monochromatic, whereas my new work is, almost technicolor, some would say. And that color just really draws people in, I've found. My old work was very precise. I was using, circles and squares and rectangles. And anytime that I tried to make something a little irregular, it felt really careless and not very purposeful. But the new work leaves a lot of room for that sort of playfulness. And I think that just adds a lot of character to the new work, and it sort of highlights the fact that it's handmade, excuse me. And my old work, the costs were very much about, how much silver I used, things like that. The new work is, I'm spending most of the cost on my design time. I'm designing a lot of pieces, and I'm really editing them down and being very careful about which ones I really put the time into bringing to life. And I think that makes them feel very intentional and not formulaic at all. And in many ways, while I was learning these techniques, I wasn't ready for abstraction. It was much easier to create by recreating things that you see every day in nature. But then as those skills became, second nature to me and I could do them without thinking, it opened up this ability and sort of capacity for me to look into something more in depth as far as the design is. So kind of what is next? Unfortunately, because I made such a huge shift in what I was making, I did lose some core collectors and some galleries where my work just doesn't fit anymore. But my new work is gaining momentum. So I was just at American Craft Council in Baltimore a few weeks ago, and I won the Award of Excellence for jewelry. I am currently making a order for one of my all-time dream galleries that I honestly never thought I would land. I do need to find sort of my new target audience, and I am going to do that by doing some more in-person shows, I think. I am looking to sell a kidney right now if anybody is interested. I would like to replace my pulse arc welder with a laser welder if I can ever afford it. The pulse arc does discolor the tin a little bit. And a laser welder would also allow me to attach tin to tin in a really clean way. And that would open up this opportunity for me to explore some more sculptural work that I'm really interested in. And although the old work did get me here, I think I've sort of held on to it as a safety net for a little bit too long. And I think it's really restricted me kind of from my full potential. And so I am looking to release that work fully, both physically and emotionally, just so that I can move on and have the capacity to really move forward and explore this new work more. So, I think I always really wondered what it would be like to go to art school. And I've always been really jealous of those that got to go. I think they had this time to really, delve in and study and try and figure out what they wanted to make before they were selling. But I think looking back, it's just a grass is greener situation. I am really grateful for this path that I went down. And I do think that the old work was absolutely necessary to get me to where I am today. And as the world gets more and more beige, both literally and figuratively, I think it's our job as artists to sort of challenge that. And so if you listen to my presentation today and you are like, oh yeah, I have this thing that I've always wanted to do, I just really want you to encourage you to do it. Even if it's just those little inklings in the studio that you are like, oh man, I should try that, but I don't have the time, or I need to focus on this thing. Just give it a shot. And lastly, I just want to reiterate that it's not about what I was making before. It's really about how I felt about it. I think there are a lot of amazing artists that are, working with organic castings in a very beautiful and inspired way. It just wasn't a good fit for me. This new work feels like a well-tailored suit. And so in the end, I just want you to put on whatever jeans fit your butts. So that's all.
Well, thank you.
Let's see if I can get out of here.
You will never leave. I like to affectionately call jeans hard pants these days, ever since the pandemic. So I personally will be wearing my soft pants, but yes, for all the rest of you, hopefully you can find the jeans that fit you. All right. Thank you very much, Carin. Just as a reminder, if you have questions for Carin or anyone else, please throw them in the Q&A chat box. You should be able to probably see that maybe towards the bottom of your screen, depending on what size your Zoom window is, or you might want to maximize or minimize to see that. And we will get to the questions at the end. All right, next up. So kind of in contrast from Carin, we've got Grant Turner, who is Ohio Midwest? Is that, I think maybe? Okay, great. So we're moving towards the middle of the country. So Grant Turner is an enamelist based out of Ohio, as I mentioned. He went to, oh my gosh, sorry, my screen just went crazy. Okay. He is a 2022 graduate of Bowling Green State University with a BFA in digital arts. He has since completed his residencies at both Pocosin and Airmount. He is leveraging enameling techniques with some modern twists, trying to layer in illustration, digital arts, and laser engraving. And Grant, why don't you take it away?
I shall. I'll take it away. Let me share my screen, everybody. All right. Whoopsies. Uh-oh. Oh, come on now. All right.
That looks
Hi,
great.
everybody. Oh, thank you. Hi, everybody. As you heard, my name is Grant Turner. I am an artist from Wapakoneta, Ohio, which I'll spell that out is Wapakoneta. And for anyone unaware, that is a small town in northwestern Ohio, and its only claim to fame is that's where Neil Armstrong was from. So that's it. That is the one of the first Ohioans to try and escape the planet. So yes, I am a 25-year-old metalsmith and enamelist, and like Amy said, I received my BFA from Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio. So I'd like to start off by giving a little bit of like a history about myself. So my first years with craft were actually involved with ceramics. And so ceramics was one of the main art courses available at my high school. And I through this program, I formed a close bond with my teacher and was able to go to her own studio and learn more about the art of ceramics and sculpture. And this really helped foster my love for craft and the arts. And my teacher allowed me to travel with her to fairs and festivals and sell my sculpture and pottery. And this gave me a really good taste of what it meant to be a professional and like independent artist at a young age. So now through my life, I have always been very fond of cartoons, whether that was growing up watching the Powerpuff Girls, Ed and Eddie, Looney Tunes, or perhaps just one of the plethora of animated VHS tapes I had growing up. Um, I think what attracts me to these cartoons is the possibilities of their impossibilities. And with this being said, when I went to college, I chose to pursue a degree in animation. Um, I placed all of my craft knowledge on a shelf and decided that I would use my hands in another way. And I found out quite quickly that although I enjoyed the technology of the animation world, I did not find my body and mind working in tandem like they would through craft. And this sent me through a lot of soul searching, trying to find a place within the digital art world to better fit my soul's desires. For my fine arts requirements, I found myself working in Bowling Green's metal studio with Marissa Sainholtz. And this was the flickering of the switch that I needed to start putting my pieces together. I ate everything up in Metals 1 and Metals 2, and I quickly signed up for Metals 3 in a rush. This is when Marissa introduced me to the art of enameling. Um, at first, this craft didn't really make much sense to me, but as the class went on, I started to make my own connections with the material, and I started to realize that whatever I can draw, I can most definitely saw, and whatever I can saw, I can most definitely enamel on, as long as it's a base metal. Um, the only issue was my pieces felt as if they were missing something. I needed something to help put everything together. At first, Marissa had suggested utilizing some P3 and using it to mimic the line art from my sketches onto the enamel. This then led us to think more into my digital works and how to expand on to this knowledge. And we began to think about what facilities and what devices did Bowling Green have available to me. And we asked, could maybe a laser engraver burn or engrave into the enamel or etch my illustrations into the surface? And the answer was yes. With the assistance of a glow forge and a lot of testing on pre-enameled steel, I began to work more confidently with my enamels. The Glowforge is able to create a really nice, rich, dark channel that is burnt into the enamel. Um, Sometimes, depending on which enamel is used, the surface texture can change, but the results are always flecks of burnt enamel. And with this knowledge, I am able to bridge my digital illustrations with the traditional craft of enameling, working to create larger wall-mounted enamels worn by walls, buildings, homes, halls, and temples, possibly protecting those spaces as I hope my work protects me. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about my story as an artist and how that's shown and developing through my work. So when I was around 21 or 22 years old, which wasn't that long ago, I began having seizures and had developed adult epilepsy. Fortunately, this diagnosis had occurred after I had completed my college degree. So I was home with family, and my whole family was home. So my sister and brother-in-law's dog was also home, and she alerted the house by throwing herself against my door and barking nonstop. And I really don't know what to think would have happened if Lou, that's her name, the dog, wouldn't have been there. I think I was seizing for maybe, gosh, 10 minutes. I'm not sure, maybe longer. Um, Anyways, it's not that important. Pre-diagnosis, my work really talked about universal truths in the hopes of releasing one's own dread. Since my health has changed post-college, so has my work. I have been so fortunate to have been awarded 2 residencies since then. My first being Pocosin Arts in Columbia, North Carolina, and then followed by Aeromont School of Arts and Crafts in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Both of these craft schools have been integral in giving me the space to create new work that I feel best explains my own expression of my inner world. These seizures that I experience only happen to me while I'm sleeping, so this creates a lot of helpless feelings. Um, I particularly want to feel safe in my own bed and in my own head. And I thought the one place that I could do that was my room, and more importantly, the solace of sleep. And my practice has grown into a call for protection. I don't know how or if it is possible, but I'll put all of my love and care into these pieces and call out to them, asking them to watch over me while I sleep, begging them to quell the worry I may cause others. Another idea that I find in my work is what I like to call still noise. It's everything you can feel within stillness. The silent scream that echoes within my own noggin. It can be expressed as every bump, scratch, burn, bruise, scrape, twist, thought, and current that runs through the old noodle. I create with these textures in mind and think of sandy socks and the discomfort that creates. I want those grooves in my pieces. I want them shouting across galleries, like rust on the surface adding grit. I have to imagine that the grit and grime in my brain, the crud that clogs and clears out my memories, and may even cause my seizures. Through these two, or through my 2 residencies post-graduation, I've worked on creating pieces that I find connect well with my own inner struggle or phenomenon. I want to combine the familiar imagery of potential human forms or figures and deconstruct these and piece them together with creatures, items, persons, places, and things, essentially nouns. giving them their own irregularities, imperfections, and possibly their own dreams and desires. A lot of my inspiration still comes from cartoons, but has expanded into referencing and integrating aspects of my immediate environments, whether that be a gruff stranger passed on the street or the new flora and fauna dancing around in my new atmosphere. Um, a lot of these images come to me in flashes or sequences, coming and going like visitors to a coffee shop, allowing me to figure out just which aspects to keep and which to lose. It is comparable to a dance, a swift twist and turn in my head, allowing me to see the motions at which each part may come to play. Additionally, these residencies have given me the freedom to expand on the art of enameling, giving me the space to experiment and continue my exploration with the results of laser engraved enamel. With this exploration, I've continued to push the scales of my enamels and work to have this craft recognized continuously as more than just wearables. Okay, so now I'm going to get into like the way that I really work and how I create. So my work is a combination of both my digital illustrations and my enamels, as we all know. And so how I'll do this is I'll start by sketching anything on Procreate, which is a digital sketching app. I recommend, it's great. I will then take these sketches and I'll sort of break them down. And with this, I'm able to then separate that onto computer paper and then make those my sawing guides. So then those all become sawn out on copper, which then I can then, go through the original traditional art of enameling. Once these guides are all sawn out, I'm then able to enamel everything, okay? And then once this part is done, I can then place everything into the laser engraver, as you can see in some of these images here. This is where my illustrations are burned into the enameled surface. From this stage, I can then relax the enamel with another firing and add any extra details back into the piece. What an extra firing would help do would just be to help the enamel relax around where the burns are so we don't have any breakages or any extra damage that we could avoid. So after this, I'm then able to take my pieces and bring them all together to create the illustration that I had in mind. So I can do this in two ways. One way is I can carefully kiln fuse everything together through a series of extra firings, which is not recommended. Or the other way is to utilize clear 100% silicone bathroom caulk to seal the enamel pieces together. And this is a very useful tip I got from the late legendary enamelist Martha Bonyas. Thank you so much, Martha. And then afterwards, this piece is ready for anything. You can go and construct your backing and get ready to complete your piece. Discovering this way of working has allowed me to continue to expand the sizes of my enamels, giving me the freedom to add to my pieces regardless of a kiln's restrictive size. So I have some images of a larger scale piece that I've been working on here at Aeromont. It's grown from a small creature. And you can see through my sketches as its development comes along. And here are all of the different enamels that I've created, and I've separate everything, and these all stack on top of each other. So then it'll continue to grow. And here I'm adding in another extra wolf guy. The dog motif is very present in my work, and that's definitely because without Louis, I don't think I would be in the position that I am in today, which was the dog that my sister's dog. Um, and I'm constantly reminded by like her actions, and it is definitely found through my work. This beast creature, is it here to save? It's here to protect. And so this piece has grown into two separate parts, and it has the dimension of like 21 inches width across, but these are all wall mounted enamels that I am creating. Yes. So thank you so much all for listening to my talk here with the Seattle Metals Guild. And thank you so much for the Guild for allowing me this time to share my story. Upcoming events for me, the Aeromont residency, the Aeromont Residence show is coming up here rapidly, and we're beginning to install at the beginning of April. And as far as my future plans go, I'll be taking a rest from traveling and residencies to focus on my health. I'm being submitted to testing at the Cleveland Clinic for my epilepsy, and after that, I will see where the wind takes me. So thank you so much for listening, and yes.
Thank you very much, Grant. Amazing story, amazing work. And if you are ever looking for demonic dogs, 3 of my 4 dogs qualify, so they are more than happy to figure model for you. First sitting is free. So
Perfect. Thank you.
all right. And then that takes us now, as we continue on our, I guess, reverse Oregon Trail journey, we're going further east. So we're going to be hearing from Wyatt Nestor-Pasicznyk, also known as Wyatt N-P, also known as that belt buckle guy. I did not make that up. That came from the internet. He is also an enamelist metalsmith, though his enameling techniques are slightly different. Let's see. Let's take a look here. So Wyatt is a graduate of the Tyler School of Art and Architecture's Metals and Jewelry program. See, he's recently become the metal studio technician at the Maine College of Art and Design as well. He has worked with Champlavet enameling, mostly in the form of belt buckles. He works a lot with objects that are tied to masculinity and heteronormative society in rural America. So with that, Wyatt, I shall pass the wand over to you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Wyatt N-P, or Wyatt Nestor-Pasicznyk. Kind of shorten it with the 2 last names. It's a lot. So I'm an enamelist and a metalsmith based out of actually from rural New Jersey, and I moved to Southern Maine for a position at Maine College of Art and Design a couple weeks ago, where I'm working as their metals studio coordinator and technician. Only been a few weeks, but I'm just super happy to be up there, making the studio a better place, fixing every single broken hammer and every broken flex shaft and broken drill press and so much broken stuff. Um, they've got a lot of majors, so there's a lot of people coming in and out of the studio. So it's just a great time to be a part of such a great community studio. And also, thank you to Seattle Metals Guild for having me in their emerging artist lecture tonight. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to sharing some work with everybody. And go to the next one. All right, so to start off, a bit of tonight's talk will be sort of centered around my life as a farmer and when I was a child, and just like how I was raised and brought up. Rural Americana is just not only a larger theme within my body of work, but also within my life and type of family that I was born into. I started riding when I was 3 years old and ended up rescuing a retired racehorse when I was 10, and I had him for 15 years. And then I've been riding my whole life, and just horses were such a big part of my life, and just a part of something that made me feel purposeful, made me feel happy, made me feel really grounded, especially just taking care of something so meaningful and just the emotional support that it would just give back to you. So when I was a kid, I did 4-H, Pony Club, FFA, youth rodeo, every single youth organization, any sort of agriculture organization that I could join as a child or young adult, I joined, I competed, I was super happy and I loved it. Um, so on the left is actually a photo of me with my dad, and that's our neighbor's horse, Robbie. That was the first horse that I rode as a child, and he was just there making sure I didn't fall off, which was great. And then on the right is a photo of me from a few years ago. I worked at a living history farm in New Jersey. It was a Howell Living History Farm. I worked there for a few years in between my seasons working at Peters Valley School of Craft. So on the off seasons, I would work at the farm in livestock management. Um, so we can go to the next one. This is fun. We're kind of going through everything. So after graduating from undergrad, I went to Tyler School of Art and Architecture, and I graduated in 2021. Um, After graduating from that program in metals and jewelry, I worked one jewelry production job that I absolutely hated. I stuck it out for 4 months. It was a really long. It was the longest, like, in 10 years of my life for that 4 months. It was really terrible company, unfortunately. And it was just making repetitive pins, Daughters of the American Revolution pins, police badges, enameling all of these things. You know, which was my job, which was kind of fun, but just like the content and then the repetitive process and having to do hundreds of these terrible little pieces that I hated really took a major toll on my mental health, especially being inside a terribly ventilated building in the middle of Philadelphia over the summer was just horrible. So I was just kind of like, I need to think of a career change. I really have always loved working with horses, and I had blacksmithing experience from like previous years. And so I actually started looking into becoming a farrier. Working outside and with animals was just something that I had always loved, especially as a child. So I found some resources, got connected. I still had a lot of my equine contacts. I worked at a racetrack for a bit, apprenticing under a farrier for about a year, and then I switched and ended up apprenticing with the guy that used to shoe my horses as a kid. So it was really crazy, really great getting to work with him for a bit. And that was just where I really learned to um, do like more with my time, especially valuing the type of work that I wanted to be making. And then the influences of working there really kind of fed into like, okay, now I know what I wanted to be doing with my own work. We can go to the next one. So in the fall of 2021, I was still shoeing horses, doing that kind of dwindling down to part time as I kind of wanted to start getting back into metalsmithing and jewelry. I applied for a really short format 3 week residency at Peters Valley School of Craft in Layton, New Jersey. And a mentor of mine from undergrad, she encouraged me to apply, knowing that I still had no studio access. I had a really janky home studio set up with an enameling kiln like in the garage, and then my bench was like in my parents' basement, so it was kind of going between a bunch of places to do anything. So she was like, "You should apply to this. You'll have studio access. You can make some contacts. You're in New Jersey, they're in New Jersey. That's all very close together." So I did that, and I wanted to continue making my work and developing it. And I got that residency, and little did I know it was going to be absolutely life-changing for me. It really set me on the path to actually work at that craft school for the next 3 years and making the most amazing body of work of my career, way better than any of the stuff I made in undergrad, and also just make the most amazing family of craftspeople that I'm just so lucky to call friends. We can go to the next one. Thanks. So during my residency at Peters Valley in 2021, and at the end of my time in college, I discovered that the type of jewelry that I wanted to be making was what would really be just categorized as Western wear. Um, Belt buckles, bolo ties, anything of that nature. Going back to my roots and really what interested me as a child really just helped me figure out the type of pieces that I wanted to be making and the people that I wanted to be making jewelry for. So this piece, Day Rider, was one of the first pieces that I made outside of school and was really the starting point for the type of work that I do make today. So, a year after graduating from undergrad and a few months after that short little residency at Peters Valley, I decided to apply to the summer assistantship. I figured I can be working in agriculture my whole life. That would be great. But also, I would love to have access to a kiln again and a studio and be among like-minded people. So I applied to that. I received the position. I was there for the summer season, and I assisted the studio coordinator and just made work every single spare second that I had that wasn't occupied by hiking or running around outside fairly in bodies of water. We're in the woods. It was a great summer. It's a really good thing to be doing in your early 20s. Um, And then the following year in 2023, I applied as a studio coordinator as my previous boss had finished her seasons up, and she just was like, "You should apply, and this would be great for you." So I had already known the studio, I knew where everything was, and I had connections with the people, and a lot of my friends that had worked there previously were working there again. So it was really great to come back the following year as a studio coordinator, and I had that position for 2 years, and it ended last year in November of 2024. So I was running, maintaining the studio, ordering materials, teaching summer workshops, repairing all the equipment. The job was just extremely life-changing for me, and it just gave me the confidence, skills, and knowledge to run a community metal studio, and then just teach my own workshops and really, you know, have more of an interdisciplinary perspective to craft and sort of integrating all of these different mediums and getting to see how things were going in woodworking and how they were going in blacksmithing versus weaving and textiles to ceramics. So it was really nice being such a close community with so many amazing makers. So here's some just photos of things before they are things. I would say that around 90% of my work is centered around a process called champleve enameling. Um, the way that I do most of my champleve is through etching, and kind of like how Grant uses a really illustrative process to make his pieces. I also use a digital drawing program, and I draw everything out, map it out, then print it on this blue transfer paper, which kind of works as a resist. So if there's any printmakers in here, if you've done any etching, it's like the same idea. And I use ferric chloride to etch all of my pieces in a bath. So then you get those recessed areas. It's definitely a labor of love for sure. It's very time consuming, but etching away these little areas provides little spaces for you to wet pack little colors in, and then you build up the layers of the enamel, flush the layer of the metal, and then you can kind of stone it down and have it flush with the surrounding metal. It's really tedious and time consuming, but I just really love the outcome and how color can be incorporated into metalwork with such like a painterly way. So here's just some of the process shots of just the etching from the resist, with the duct tape around it just to protect the metal, and then taking that off, and then you see how far down you have with that nice etched texture on it. Um, but it's definitely a time-consuming process, I will say. I do saw and solder as well for certain things, and I love teaching saw and solder. But for the bulk of the work that I make, I do prefer etching, especially for the convenience of transforming an illustration directly to a piece, and for making multiples, it really lends itself to the process. So everything starts with a sketch in my sketchbook. Sometimes they're not very well done. They're very like quick little thoughts. So I'm like, oh, that would be nice. And then I just draw it really wiggly and take a picture, and then I refine it. I also use Procreate. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it. You should use that if you need any sort of digital drawing app. So I refine that in on my digital program with my tablet, and then print it out on the PNP paper. But usually when I'm in the designing process, I kind of color map all my enamels out so I can kind of plan what colors I'm going to be using, what will look nice, with the other colors. And if I'm doing a piece for a customer, I try to send them different color paths and just options so they have, different little views of what they could potentially have. So here's that buckle finished. That's that sketch from the previous slide. And there's a little fine silver moon right above the mountains that I soldered in. It gets a nice little yellow line around it with the purples and the silvers don't really like each other. So it's a fun little bit. So these two pieces were a pair that I did based off of photos that I took at my job at the Living History Farms plowing match a few years ago. I had some stills, and I kind of went through. A lot of my pieces are kind of based off of stills or a variety of different pictures that I've taken, usually working different agriculturally based jobs, usually from the Living History Farm. Some are just from sketches that I've just drawn up. Um, so these two were a really lovely pair to do, and they're quite big too for belt buckles. I've worn them a couple times. I was like, wow, these ones they're on the bigger side. They're about 3 by almost 4, which is massive for the scale that I'm usually working. So in 2023, I was contacted to be a part of this amazing exhibition. It's called Everybody's Bolos. Highly recommend you check it out. It started off in University of North Texas in Denton in 2024. Actually, around this time last year, I was there for that. It's amazing. And The show is actually currently still traveling, and it's over at the Fuller Craft Museum. And I highly recommend checking it out. This was actually the third bolo tie I made, and I've gotten made so many better ones that I love so much more than this one. So I'm happy that I made this one, but I've made some better ones. These pieces are just some of the production work that I had been making the past few years. These are from last year. I actually had them also. Corinne was at ACC. I was also at ACC this year and last year um, vending. I had these ones last year. So these are just more of a production style and just some examples that I bring for bolo tie workshops that I've been teaching at schools like Idlewild, Aramont, and Peters Valley. Um, this one was also definitely a labor of love and a new experiment from 2024. I started this piece off during a short 1 week residency at Snow Farm. I really wanted to start doing something with the water slide decals. I'd never really done anything with that while I was in school, and I never really thought to add those over Champlevé. I'm very thankful to Jill Tower for all of her DMs back and forth with me with the just the water slide problem solving. It's actually not as complicated as it looks for that. But I really was excited to just experiment with this a little bit to get some different textures over the colors and try to like allude to crackle, cracked sand and then sort of like a turquoise, faux turquoise kind of look. So this piece is also quite massive. It's the same size as the other those pieces with the horses. So it's a bigger one, but it's definitely was such a fun one to do. This is another concept that I had while I was at Snow Farm. I loosely had a sketch of it, but then I didn't actually get to flesh it out until this past summer and fabricate everything. Um, just really love the addition of these decals. They really just give that faux turquoise effect over the enamel, which I honestly think is kind of nice to just pay respects to Champlevé's original purpose of, intended purpose of replacing the stones in a piece of jewelry with glass. And then it's like I'm replacing the stones with glass, but then making them look like stones again. So it's kind of an interesting thing to think about. This piece, I also did this last year. It's 2025 now. This was one of my favorite ones that I did recently. I inherited a large collection of leaded enamels in 2023, and I did not want to use them because I was so scared of them. And I started using them last year, and it was just the best thing I've ever done because some of the pinks and the colors are so much better. I don't do any sifting. So as long as it's mixed with distilled, it's just I mostly just wet pack everything. I don't really do any sifting processes. So I've just been going nuts with the strawberry pink and kind of putting it in everything. So that central pink that's in that horse, I've just been like putting in a lot of pieces just because I have so much of it. And I'm just like, this is my new favorite color and I'm going to use it for everything. So I try to use it whenever I get the chance. And then I also got a shot plate this past year. So I've been using that for rivets, just trying to make some interesting little details, just to make them, elevate them, make them a little less boring. So they're more of part of the design instead of just being like something that holds the piece together. But it's definitely one of my favorite ones from last year. Again, another piece that I made this past year while at Peters Valley. This is based off of a series of sketches. That's like a little comic panel that I was working on. I'm currently actually working on the like sister piece to this piece that is going to have some gold cloisonne wire. If I can get the gold cloisonne wire to cooperate, and it's very stressful working with even the tiniest little amount of it. Um, so this one was just really fun having all those rolled textures on the back, and I like having little added details to the backing, so they're as interesting as the front as well. This one I just finished a few weeks ago. I'm slowly designing a little like monochrome series, and these are very petite. They're about 2 inches wide, maybe two and a half to under. They're under three. They're very small, which is very nice. I've gone a little bit simpler with the colors, trying to keep it. There's actually 4 shades of blue in there, but they're all very slight variations of each other. And kind of like that cloud piece with the horse, I'm trying to do some lineless color packing in there. So the moon in the background is just like very soft. But I'm going to be doing some monochrome pieces hopefully this year. Have plans for a red one, a green one, almost on a yellow one, and I'm going to do a black one, which I'm excited about. So, and this buckle was kind of insanity for me. I've had a lot of medical stuff happen this past year, in the past 4 or 5 years. And I had one surgery this fall that turned into four surgeries, which lent me a lot of time to draw and kind of sit and be idle. So it was really important for me to just kind of look at what was around me and look through photos of the past few years, especially um, while I was like up and about and hiking and fishing and doing all the things that I loved. So this for me is just kind of like a love letter to my life and myself. For me, drawing is really as important part of making the pieces and planning as the making of the actual piece. And I really just loved having as many little details and intricacies as possible in this piece. It's just something that I love about enameling as a medium and metalsmithing as a medium. So all of the photos in this piece are actually photos that I have taken or have been taken of me, that I've collected. So central in the piece is actually a photo that I took while I was at Aramont last year. It was in of the mountains. And then I have some that were taken of me while I was fishing, and then that one in the lower left under the fishing reel is of Hilltop House at Peters Valley, where I lived as an assistant during my time there. So this one is definitely something that really is kind of marks where I want to go with my work, especially with the aspect of storytelling and just trying to see how much detail you can get into a little tiny piece, especially, the belt buckles, they are in terms of jewelry, they are quite a larger form of jewelry, but it's still pretty small to pack a lot of little things into. But just getting to add these little aspects of storytelling within my work just really acts as just, how much I just love the natural world and just enjoy my life, whether I'm swimming, fishing, hiking, working with horses, or at a place where I've grown to love. So yeah, thank you guys so much. It was just a wonderful experience getting to come on here and share my work with everybody and get to be with so many amazing artists tonight. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Wyatt. It's kind of interesting to think of, like, you think of belt buckle, but it really is a brooch. When I went to the New York Jewelry Week show last fall, everything's a brooch. So it's just a brooch for the waist. Okay, great. So I'm going to do a little round robin with you guys, and then we will continue with the program of everyone else's questions. But I believe in feeding myself first. So we get to ask me questions first. So I will just ask a question, and then I'll just call on each of you. And, if you have some input, please feel free to add. So who are some of your inspirations, artists or otherwise? Grant, do you want to take a cut first?
Yeah, one of my inspirations as an artist is Sulo B. They're an artist. They are a jeweler, a metalsmith, and I stumbled upon them when they were doing a series of like larger wearables, and it was almost like chains, and it involved concrete and metal, and it was just I am inspired by their use of material and color.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I feel like, sorry, I think my computer is on the fritz right now.
I
Can you
think you're
still hear me?
back. Yeah. We heard
Okay.
everything you said. It was robotic. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. Okay. Is that a
Yeah.
satisfactory answer?
Yes.
Okay.
You get an A+ for the answer. Okay.
Yay.
Corinne, what about you? What are some of your artistic inspirations, whether that's, visual or musical or otherwise?
Yeah, like I said, I was studying a lot of abstract painting. And so there's a few, there's a lady named Kat Huss, who I'm really obsessed with her paintings right now. As far as jewelers go, when I was in Tucson and I was thinking about adding neon, I was carrying around a pair of Laura Wood earrings that were neon yellow, and I was holding them up to all the stones to try and figure out what fit them. And then there's a lady out of California that I really love right now, Kelsey Carter, that is doing some really, I think it's sort of just her vibe that I'm attracted to. She feels very authentic. But yeah, there's a bunch for sure.
Great. Wyatt, do you have anyone you want to call out?
Yeah, definitely. I think well, actually, it's funny. Two of the main enamelists that I was really shown as examples of like this is contemporary enameling. when I was in school are Zachary Lechtenberg and Orly Guillaume, and both of which have become very close friends to me over the past 4 years. And it's just so amazing just seeing their work and how we all you like all of them, me and Grant, we all share the same medium within enameling, and it's just there's so many different ways of doing it, and especially with the storytelling aspect, since I feel like a lot of enamelists are very heavy um, with like painting or drawing or animation, background. So it's really interesting getting to see how much variation there is within that.
Great. What's better than being friends with your heroes? All right. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a question now, and I'm going to give you a moment to think about noodle on this one while I ask you some of the other questions, because maybe it's a little heavier. So this question I'll ask you towards the end is, how do you want your work to be remembered? So kind of start thinking about that. But I'm going to go back to our Q&A list here. Let's see. All right. So this one is more of a comment to Carin. You have a patron that is willing to let you use her laser welder at her studio, so we can get you connected if you'd like to go into Seattle for that. Let's see. Next question for Carin. Where do you find your tin pieces?
So I am actually ordering most of my tin on eBay because I am really particular that I find tin that has already been damaged in some way. You can actually probably see a bunch of it back there. I am really particular because I find it so precious that I don't want to cut up tin that is, still good or collectible. And so that's kind of the place that I have found that I can get a large quantity of tin at a good price that I know is already damaged in some way.
Let's see, we've got a question for Grant. Can you tell us about your first slide? I'm assuming this is the first slide of your presentation.
Yeah, that's one of my digital pieces. It combines like one of my first metal pieces. Should I pull it up? We need a visual aid,
Yeah, if you
right?
don't mind.
No, I
My
don't mind.
short-term memory is real short, so.
So is mine. Here, we'll share my screen. All right. Oopsies. There we go. It is my best friend, one of my best friend, Yasmin, and she had her tongue pierced, and it's just a brooch that I made. And it was just a simple riveting project. And I made like a melting ice cream cone, all cold connections. And so I edited the picture, but we just dropped the pin back through her tongue, and I just snapped a picture and then made it for
Oh,
me.
Shiva vibes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. But she was a real good sport with all of my shenanigans.
Nice. All right. Okay, I'm gonna keep going here. Let's see. Carin, can you share where you would be selling your pieces? We love the colors and shapes.
Yeah, I am selling online. I am doing some in-person shows, which I announce online and on my email newsletter. So sign up for that. I am carrying at Metal Museum in Tennessee. The next collection that I'm making right now is going to Mora in Asheville, North Carolina. Who else has them yet? I will be doing a collection. Pistachios in Chicago currently has my old work, but I will be sort of trading that out for the new work, hopefully within the next 6 months.
Okay, so I would like to thank, of course, our speakers for sharing their work and their journey with us. I'd also really like to thank our sponsors, Art Jewelry Forum in Rio Grande, as well as many individual donors that have helped to sponsor our speaker series. So thank you very much. If you're interested in sponsoring, please feel free to visit seattlemetalsguild.org, where you can learn more about that, our upcoming programming, as well as if you are not yet a member, we'd love to have you as well. So thanks to all of you as well for joining us and for all discussion and questions and engagement we've had today. I hope you all can join us again next month, April 15th, for our next event in the series, where we'll hear from another crew of emerging artists in the field.
Can I also take a moment to thank our coaches? We've behind the scenes paired up our speakers with members and friends of the organization who've made themselves available as more established artists to our speakers tonight to help them refine their talks and, be a sounding board. So thank you all.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night, and we'll see you next month, hopefully.